An effective elite strategy for maintaining social inequality in many archaic states and prehistoric complex societies was the selective use of animals either as culinary delicacies or along with other sacred objects and ritual offerings. The Wari Empire's occupation of the Moquegua Valley in southern Peru during the Middle Horizon provides an example of this phenomenon. There is evidence at Cerro Baúl and throughout the Peruvian Andes for the diacritical consumption and ritual sacrifice of animals such as llamas and guinea pigs. As the Wari Empire expanded their control throughout the Andes, they subjugated local communities that held different traditions and ritual practices. Based on the findings at Cerro Baúl, it is fair to assert that the selective use and conspicuous consumption of fauna for feasting events and ritual offerings, due to their relatively high food utility and symbolic value, was a method utilized by warrior elites to demonstrate and consolidate hegemonic power and authority over smaller endemic polities. The Wari Empire extended approximately 800 miles from north to south across modern-day Peru. At the southern frontier of the Wari Empire lies the Moquegua River Valley. In the upper portion of the valley sits the site of Cerro Baúl. Baúl was a provincial or high-level administrative center. The elites who once lived at this center had access to diverse and luxurious goods, including highly valued cuts of meat. In zooarchaeology, there are multiple methods to determine the nutritional value of a portion of an animal. For instance, various utility indices can calculate how much bone marrow and edible meat that can be consumed from a particular skeletal element. The index that I'll be referring to is the Food Utility Index, which is a more refined calculation that includes multiple aspects associated with a particular bone, such as meat, fat, marrow, and grease. Not only do animal bones indicate nutritional value, they also hold symbolic value embedded within different cultures. Some archaeological sites may contain a large quantity of bones that hold little to no nutritional value. This scenario could show evidence that a particular society has embedded meaning into this specific animal that goes beyond mere nutritional indices. This project will concentrate on materials recovered from a palace complex within the site of Cerro Baúl. The excavations of this palace reveal evidence of ritualistic behavior involving intentionally placed offerings in pit features. The total faunal assemblage consists of 6,402 elements from at least 137 individuals, representing a minimum of 25 taxa. Specifically looking at the 23 pit features within the palace, the majority of animal parts that were ritualistically deposited came from camelids, fish, and guinea pigs. These three animals have been documented throughout the Wari Empire as common food sources. Camelid remains with butchery marks indicating consumption have been found throughout the Andes, thus exhibiting the use of these animals as food. Depictions on pottery and evidence of symbolic sacrifices reveal that camelids also held a degree of meaning that exceeds beyond mere nutritional value. The entire faunal assemblage was collected by Dr. Donna Nash and identified by Dr. Susan DeFrance. I took the faunal data and compiled it into groupings determined by the pit feature. Once all the skeletal elements were organized, I created faunal forms to easily visualize the information of every bone in each pit feature. The faunal forms included pictures of the skeleton pertaining to the animal remains present in each pit feature, with shaded in sections of the excavated bones. All of this data organization was crucial for any subsequent analysis of how to interpret the faunal remains at Cerro Baúl. The portions of camelids that have the highest food utility are the ribs, the lumbar and sacrum, femur, cervical vertebrae, and thoracic vertebrae. Using these FUI values, elements from the axial skeleton of a camelid would be the most nutritionally or calorically valuable for a feasting event like the one that occurred within the palace residence. Within the pit features, about 40% of the 130 total elements found are from the axial skeleton. This leaves about 60% of the deposited camelid bones having a relatively low food utility. The non-dietary animals found within the various pits were a variety of birds and a toad that could have been utilized for its psychotropic effects. Exotic animals such as these could have been a display of wealth because of their rarity, or they could have indicated other symbolic significance. Out of the 23 total pit features, 10 pits contained mainly camelid bones with high food utility, 7 had mainly low-valued or non-food bones, and 6 pits that contained both high and low-ranking bones. The majority of pit features that enclosed high food utility elements were located either in the main entrance court or the large open patio room. The remaining 10 pit features that housed mainly non-food or low food utility elements were in secluded rooms separated from the main feasting area. The distribution of the 5 highest ranking bones to pit feature is depicted in Figure 1. The presence of high food utility bones in the main entrance court and the opening feasting area perpetuates the notion that Wari elites utilized conspicuous consumption of choice cuts of meats to claim and display wealth and status to those who attended the feast. The rarity and diversity of non-food elements being ritualistically offered in separate areas and smaller rooms indicate that these elements were embedded with symbolic meaning. Wari elites that most likely sponsored this feasting event were using the symbolic capital associated with these non-food bones to display ritual authority. The exact meaning of these symbolic elements will require further research to decipher, but from this data, it is evident that the selective use and conspicuous consumption of animals for feasting events and ritual offerings due to their relatively high food utility and symbolic value was a method utilized by warrior elites to demonstrate and consolidate power and authority over the community surrounding Cerro Baúl.